Reddit, what is your craziest dorm story? In the late 70s/early 80s, Illinois State built a brand new dorm building where the rooms all had two closets, one on each side wall, but because they built the dorm on the cheap, the backs of the closets didn't have real walls, only thin pieces of pressboard. That was all that was separated one dorm room from the next. Once students figured this out, they cut big holes in the pressboard so that you could get to the adjoining dorm room by opening the closet door and scooting through the hole in the back wall. They did this in room after room, until they had effectively built a huge secret passageway connecting every single dorm room on the floor. The creation of this secret passageway led, almost immediately, to a culture of endless, enormous, authority-proof dorm parties. As soon as anybody knocked on the door or the party room, everybody could bail through the closets and be 7 doors down the hall by the time the RA or campus security were let in. Or they would keep all the alcohol and whatnot in one room, and have all the people in the next. So even when the RAs knew there was a ginormous party happening, they couldn't do jack shit about it. It was total non-stop chaos. Some of the bigger hooligans would commit all manner of mischief on campus, and then hightail to this dorm building, knowing that once they were safely inside any room, there was no way the cops could ever find them. Every summer, the school would replace the ripped-out pressboard with sturdier and sturdier material. But students just got stronger saws, and kept rebuilding the secret passageways, year after year. Eventually, only a few years after they built it, the school gave up and tore the building down. I lived in a co-ed dorm for a few years before moving into an apartment. For some reason, I thought it would be better, so I saw a bunch of stuff on a routine basis. But the one thing that I would classify as the craziest is when I went around the dorm with my friend who was in RA doing smoke alarm checks. He would knock and announce himself and wait for about a minute. If nobody answered, and knock again. If nobody answered, he would key in. Everything was cool and nothing was exciting until we came across room 221. I will never forget what I saw. My friend swung the door open and took one step in as we were having a deep conversation about the awesomeness of John Lennon, typical college conversation, and there he was. A 300+ pound naked fat hairy guy with a belt wrapped around his neck tied to his bed frame fucking a roasted chicken, like one that you would get from Walmart. He obviously didn't hear my friend knocking and was busy choking himself out while stuffing his fuck chicken. Of all the crazy shit that I saw in college, I will never forget that chicken. Our dorm was all singles and the doors directly opposed to each other in the hallway and open into the rooms. We lived on the 5th floor of our building. I was playing Super Smash in my friend's room with the door open when we heard some floormates laughing in the hallway. They'd taken an entire roll of duct tape and constructed a duct tape rope between one of their doors and their friends, who at the time was studying in his room unaware of his impending predicament. The guys pounded on his door and let Dan know he was trapped in his room and they weren't gonna let him out. Dan ran to the door and pulled as hard as he could, but the duct tape held strong. He tried and tried, before giving up and declaring that he'd find a way out. 20 minutes later, Dan knocked on his door and told his friends to go to the bathroom down the hall and look out the window. We followed along with his friends and we all peered out the window towards where Dan's window was, curious to see what he thought he was gonna do. Well, we saw his window open and a thin rope thrown out and lowered toward the courtyard, about 40 feet below. By the time we realized it was a 30-foot-long Ethernet cord, not a rope, Dan was already out of the window, dangling 40 feet above the courtyard. Bear in mind, this was the middle of winter, it was probably 30 degrees outside. As he tried to rappel down the wall, our RA happened to walk in the bathroom to see what all the commotion was. Needless to say, he almost had a heart attack when he saw Dan dangling from an Ethernet cord. Somehow, someway, Dan managed to make it to the bottom of the cord, but was still 15 feet above the concrete. He dropped and rolled, and we all cheered as he ran to the door to come back inside. When he got back up and back into his room, he showed us how he'd done it. The crazy son of a bitch had tied his Ethernet cord to his radiator that was next to his window and thought it'd be a great idea to use it as an anchor to rappel 40 feet down the building. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life, let alone just a dorm. One night a guy in my dorm announced his girlfriend was giving blowjobs to anyone who wanted it. Guys were lined up outside the door, would come in one at a time, and she gave each one a blowjob. When I was in college, my freshman year, I was dormed on the same floor with the entirety of the soccer team. I was told that they throw a party on the floor every time they win a game, so lock my door on game nights. Soccer started up, but they never threw a party, so I assumed our team just sucked hardcore. One night I was getting back from drinks and pool, billiards, not swimming, late into the soccer season, and hear music on my floor. I guess they won. When the elevator doors opened, there was music blasting but no one in the lobby, so I assumed they were just holding it in some of their rooms or something. I went to my dorm room and grabbed some stuff to take a shower, then went to the communal unisex bathroom. When I got in there, I realized the party was in the bathroom. There was probably 30 to 40 people in there partying, and no one was really clothed. Most wore towels around their waists, and some girls were just straight up naked and drinking out of solo cups. They had huge speakers set up on the sink counter. People were hooking up in the stalls. Mostly because I was already tipsy from hanging out with my friends, I decided to take a shower during their party anyways. I got past everyone and got in an empty shower stall and started washing up as quick as my wobbly self could. Before I could finish, a cute girl wearing just a towel around her waist and exposing her breast opens the curtain and sees me, and just giggles and jokes about how I'm actually showering during a party. I found out months later her name was Claire. She told me she'd washed my back and started rubbing my back, but didn't use soap and accidentally crushed her solo cup in her hand and on my back, pouring beer all over my back. While she is doing this, someone called for her and she shouted that she was showering with Kevin. I'm not Kevin or look anything like either Kevin from the soccer team. A group of 2 guys and a girl come over, and when they see me, they tell her I'm not Kevin, but she's not believing them. After like 2 minutes of arguing, they just start calling me new Kevin and offer me a shot. I took a shot with them. The girl who thought I was Kevin grabbed my dick and asked if I could make it move, then her friends pulled her away and told her, for real, that's not Kevin. They got her back to her dorm room after that. During this whole time, I was almost completely silent except for telling her I'm not Kevin and accepting the shot. The people I took a shot with were all from my floor, and the guys called me new Kevin for the rest of the year when they saw me. The girl who was with the guys just gave me dirty looks when we saw each other, and Claire just avoided me in embarrassment until I switched to a nicer dorm. Had a guy light one of the rooms on my floor on fire. He never got charged for it, but we knew it was him because Googling his name led to an article about him lighting wildfires in his home state. Then he wrote a fake death threat to himself to gain sympathy and distract everyone from the whole fire thing. He was moved to a different dorm. Then he stabbed himself with scissors on campus and claimed to have been attacked. Campus police saw through his bullshit this time. He was expelled and threatened with arrest should he ever set foot on campus again. A year later I googled his name and he had killed himself. I was visiting a friend at another school for the first time. He and I were planning on smoking until we walked into his dorm room and saw a girl on his bed in labor. We were both speechless until his roommate came running back from the bathroom with a wet towel and said, "Don't freak out. Don't freak out." The girl turned out to be the roommate's sister who lived nearby and was visiting. She went into labor a few weeks early, so everyone was thrown off guard. They eventually took an ambulance to the hospital, and once they were gone we saw that she was sitting on my friend's bed when her water broke. We ended up cleaning up the mess for a while, then smoked like never before in order to get the image of a total stranger screaming her lungs out of our heads. A friend of mine tells a story about his freshman year in the dorm with a roommate. The roommate was heading off to class, and my friend was ready to enjoy some quality alone time with some specialist gentleman's literature. For some reason, he decided this session was going to occur completely nude. Having disrobed, sat at his desk, firing up the internet, there was the rustling of keys in the door. For some reason, the roommate was coming back into the room. Thinking unfathomably quickly, He grabbed the open can of Dr. Pepper on the desk and poured it all over his body. As the door opened, he said, "God damn it, I spilled this Dr. Pepper all over myself." Mental reflexes of cat. I did a power hour on Burnett's vanilla vodka and punched out a fluorescent light. I wrapped my bloody hand in my shirt and took off my pants for some reason. When campus security arrived, I accidentally racially slurred one of the officers by calling him every stereotypical Mexican name I could think of because I forgot his real name. They tried to take me to the hospital because I was too drunk, so I punched one of them, with my non-bloody hand. They called the police and I woke up in the drunk tank, in my underwear and a blanket with a bloody hand and a underage drinking ticket. The campus security officer told me I punched like a girl the next day when I apologized. He was a good dude. My brother's frat flooded the second floor in the winter. They lay down plastic sheeting and then opened all the windows. It froze and was a badass indoor ice skating for a few days. Then the second floor collapsed through the first floor into the basement. They lost their charter. It's a miracle nobody died. In the beginning of my freshman year, I was hanging out with a lot of different people, feeling out any potential friends. Well, one Thursday night myself and a group of girls went out partying and got extremely shit-faced. We all went back to our dormitory building and decided to hang out to one girl's room for more shots, which were not needed at all. Anyways, we all get back and take 2 more shots. Everyone was at their limits at this point. I'm gay and assumed this other guy in the friend group was too. He was talking about how he needs to get laid and stuff, and I said just download Grindr, Giggle, you'll find a guy in no time, to which he responded, I'm straight. I was so embarrassed and didn't know what to say, until the girls in the room were saying, no you are not. Stop lying. He continued to deny it, until one of them told him to prove it. She pulled out her tits, with her pierced nipples, and told him to suck her nipples. I had known these people for 1 week and this is what I was already witnessing. He freaked out and was yelling, "What are you doing?" And then finally, he admitted he is gay. I was relieved. Everyone told him it was okay and the atmosphere was really awkward, so we decided to take more shots. We ended up getting way too drunk and me and the other gay guy hooked up. One time I was up late doing some homework and I finally finished up, so I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth. I was just standing there staring into the mirror and all of a sudden some kid on a unicycle comes in through the bathroom wearing a rainbow-colored Phantom of the Opera mask and a thong. He salutes me as he comes through and then went down the hall. Apparently no one else saw him that night. I walked into my dorm late one night after finals. My really gross roommate, never cleaned up anything or changed her sheets, was fucking her boyfriend in my bed. Yeah, I'm not dealing with that. I've already tried confronting her about her bullshit, so I was going to just move on to the get the administration involved step. So I go across the hall to the Roz room, who's a senior. She says she'll write up a report to give to the office as soon as she's done doing what she's doing. She's smoking the biggest fucking bong I've ever seen. Like almost to the ceiling big. I should also mention these were the honors dorms, for context. I tell her I'll wait outside in the study room next door then. She says no need for that, help me smoke this dank kush. So I do. Then we write up a report high as fuck, run it, well, more like stumble it, to the front office with our eyes all bloodshot, giggling madly. Go back to my dorm, roommate is playing World of Warcraft on her bed, naked, boyfriend is nowhere to be seen. I ask her why she used my bed to fuck. It was because her sheets were dirty. So instead of getting more sex juices on her nasty ass sheets, she had to share them with me. Apparently she was on probation anyway, drank a bunch of SoCo in front of her old roommate, who complained, since drinking is against the rules on campus, so she got kicked out of the honors college entirely and had to move out next week. Shit was cash because then I didn't have any roommate at all the next semester. Got a single for the price of a double. All because my stoner raw and some dirty skank. Not me, but my friends from an ROTC camp had some pretty good / fucked up ones. My friends, total of 4, went to an ROTC, junior military program, camp for a month. They all had to stay in dorms for the duration as well. Friend D informs the group that he left his medication at home and then assured everyone that he didn't need it anyway. Fast forward to the night that they arrived. Friends A, B, and C wake up to the sound of squeaking, like the sound of something rubbing against a screen. They all start turning around in their beds until they see the unholy image of the moonlight shining through the window and illuminating Friend D bare-ass naked, rubbing his balls across the TV while squealing like a pig. A few days later, Friend D takes a shit in the shower when he thinks everyone is gone, also squealing like a pig. That same evening, Friend B takes a break from cleaning the mess hall to go to the bathroom. Friend B takes a stall and starts to do his business when he hears the door open. Friend B looks at the bottom of the stall and recognizes the shoes that belong to Friend D. Friend D then starts to pound on the stall. Friend B gets into a shouting match with lines along the line of "What part of occupied and farting don't you understand?" Friend D runs out the restroom, grabs a butter knife from the mess hall, runs back to the restroom, and then proceeds to use it to break the lock open on the stall that Friend B was in. Friend D then kicks the stall door so hard that he breaks the door off of its hinges. He looks at Friend B and says, "Oh, I didn't know you were in here," and then proceeds to take a dump in the sink. Oh God, I hope my friend won't see this. We were drinking in our dorm room, we're roommates, one Friday night. Actually, we were a bunch of pricks. We were at another friend's birthday dinner and bought alcohol off of him to skip his party altogether. The two of us brought along our other friend, a guy who had a massive crush on my roommate. So anyway, we're all drinking and having a good time, but then the guy starts making out with my roommate. I'm sitting on my laptop editing, so I had no concern for what was happening inches from me. Even when he pushed her onto my bed, I didn't care. I was too engrossed in random people's comments or something. Next thing I know, I hear her shout out, my name. He's sucking my nipple. I start cheering this guy on, telling him to get it. She's on the floor giggling as they're making out, and he starts some over the clothing heavy petting. Soon after, I decide to call it quits and fall asleep. I wake up the next morning to him sleeping in her bed. She has no underwear on, he's missing his shirt, and the two of them and a large majority of the room is covered in fucking Nutella. I'm in awe. A brand new jar of Nutella got smeared everywhere. I'm not even sure what happened that night. My roommate freaked out and kicked this guy out. He started doing this sad George Michael walk to the door, left, and 5 minutes later came knocking because he wanted to see if he could get some water and a piece of gum from me. I ended up spending a large majority of the afternoon cleaning up the Nutella and smashed Cocoa Puffs, which somehow got smushed into my sneakers. While my roommate puked and my guy friend texted me links to sappy love songs, trying to explain how that's how he's feeling, and I needed to relay this information to the roommate. We don't talk about this day anymore. Okay, I have a good one. So I lived on the top floor of a 17-story dorm. It was a co-ed floor that was the CS floor. I think there were around 50 people living on the floor. Half being guys and half being girls. So we have 25 of the nerdiest guys you can find and 25 really hot girls who weren't in CS. They just took too long to pick rooms, and this was all that was left. So anyway, it's been a couple weeks of us living together, and it's one of the guys' birthdays. Skinny, nerdy, stereotypical computer science major. Me and a couple of the girls on the floor think it would be hilarious to get him a stripper. So we start calling up stripper places, and apparently none of the girls want to come to a dorm. Finally we get a place, and the guy on the phone says he will ask and comes back and tells us he found us a girl. He told us it would be around $250. We don't have $250. I barely have $5 to buy a cup at the party I was going to later that night. This is when we get the genius idea to just spread the word around all 17 floors of our dorm that we were ordering a stripper and just charge $5 at the elevator. So finally the time comes and people start showing up. We got a bunch of chairs and put them in our lounge. The stripper is about to show up, and we have around 50 people all crammed in our tiny lounge. The birthday boy was on a chair in the middle of the room, and everyone else was sitting in a circle around him. Finally the stripper shows up and it was just as bad as we expected. She looked like she came straight from the trailer park to our dorm. She had a schoolgirl outfit that might have actually been hers when she was a schoolgirl 12 years ago, but at 30 with a few extra pounds on her was not all that flattering. She gets there and is shocked we had 50 people in a room waiting for her to dance. She was thinking it was going to be a small get-together. Anyway, we have never ordered a stripper before being nerds, so we didn't have any music set up. She ended up starting out just going around the room giving everyone a dance, which wasn't even that weird. Then it got weird. Very. She finally turns her attention to the birthday boy. He's been waiting in the chair in the middle of the room. She stands him up. Takes his belt off. He looks nervous. He should be. Then she stripped him completely nude in front of all 50 people. I'm pretty sure he almost died right there. Then she proceeded to spank him with his belt, and not to mention all the weird stripper things. She wrapped his dick in money and took it off with her mouth. Meanwhile this kid is bright red. His dick is basically crawling inside of himself to get away from her, and there is just 50 people sitting watching in awkward silence. Just watching this train wreck. No one could look away. Finally she finished up and everyone just beelined out of there. That kid holed up in his room for a bit but eventually came out of his shell again.